Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this, which is our second monthly webinar of 2024. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. Firstly, if you can make sure that you're muted throughout the presentations, that'd be great. It just helps everybody get the best out of the session. Also, just to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel afterwards, so that you can share it with your colleagues if they're unable to make it, or if you want to watch back if there's anything that you missed. So that will be uploaded as quickly as we can after the presentation has finished. Please feel free to put any comments or questions you have in the Q&A or the chat as we go along, and I'll try and answer them as we go, or if not, I'll answer them at the end when we'll have a Q&A session. Okay, so that's the housekeeping out of the way. So there's a few people still joining. So just to say and introduce myself, my name's Andrew Longland. I'm the Managing Director of HIT Technology. We're an established Cispro partner in the UK, and we're hosting this webinar today. And I'm joined by Tracy Ash from TRAILD.
Hi, thanks.
Moved on the slides a little bit too quick there. If you can just go back one, Tracy.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm all about streamlining things.
Excellent. During the webinar, you'll hear how TRAILD, coupled with Cispro, can improve the efficiency of your accounts payable operations and protect you from various risks. The webinar will also include a demo of TRAILD and its features. At the end of the presentation and demo, as I mentioned before, we'll have a Q&A session, which is really your opportunity to put your questions across to Tracy, and she'll do her best to answer them when we get to that point. Before we get started into the main session, I just want to cover off one thing and to just take a moment to tell you about the Cispro user group for the UK. This has been set up by a long-time Cispro user and advocate, Sarah Adamo from Trelawney, and Sarah may actually be on the call now. I can't see her there at the moment, but I think she may join us in a bit. Sarah set the group up for Cispro users across the UK to share their ideas about ways to use Cispro, get hints and tips, and really collaborate with other Cispro users. So if you're interested in being part of that community, please do search for Cispro User Group UK on either LinkedIn or YouTube, and you'll find a little bit of content there already. It's still early days, it's not long been set up, but there'll be more coming, and I think Sarah hopes to build a bit of a community there and maybe start some either online meetings or potentially in person as well. So please do have a look at that. Okay, let's give you a bit of background on HIT Technology. Tracy, if you can flick to the next slide, please. So we're an established and independent business operating and owned in the UK. We've been trading for about 15 years and specialise in providing support consultancy for Cispro, a world-leading ERP solution for manufacturers and distributors. We've got a team of 16, which includes a mix of functional consultants, technical consultants, support analysts, and service and project delivery managers. We're a premium solutions partner with Cispro, and that's at the core of our business. But we also partner with other solutions, such as TRAILD, that complement Cispro and add value to our customers' ERP environment. And the next slide, please. So why would you choose HIT Technology to work with for your Cispro and TRAILD requirements? Firstly, we have great experience of these products within the team, and many of our staff have come from customer backgrounds, which means they've been at the coalface and learned how these products work in real life scenarios. Secondly, we offer a consultative approach to everything we do. We're not in the business of just selling a piece of software because it's the latest new shiny thing to be released. We work with our customers to understand their requirements, and then we make a recommendation on the best solution for their needs. Thirdly, the entire team is made up of practical problem solvers. We find cost-effective solutions to our customers' problems. And finally, as mentioned earlier, many of our team have come from within the manufacturing and engineering industries, which means we have the real-world experience of multiple vertical sectors rather than just being software experts. Now, many of you on this webinar have worked with us before or are currently working with us, and I'd like to think that you've all experienced the benefits of what I've just described there. But that's enough about HIT technology for now. Let's dive into the real reason that you're here, which is to learn about TRAILD and accounts payable automation and risk protection as well. And for that, I'm going to hand over to Tracy.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate the opportunity to chat to you today. There's a little bit on the slide there about what a TRAILD, but maybe I'll just start with, where do I come in and where have I fit? I've been involved with Cispro as a product and an ERP system for about 15 years. I've implemented Cispro around the globe. I've been supporting Cispro for many years. I know the ins and outs of Cispro and know some of the pain points. I suppose for me, I started with TRAILD because I really saw a need to have some automation in the finance area. We're very good at looking at automation in inventory and in our manufacturing, scanning products on receipts and all those kind of areas. But I think sometimes the sort of finance people get left to pay the bills and don't get the value out of some of this sort of technology. So that was sort of really my passion and really where I started. So TRAILD is a product that is looking at two issues. It's really around that whole efficiency, but also financial control and looking at risk. TRAILD is pleased to announce that as of August last year, we are now a global ISV, so an independent software vendor of Cispro, which means we've gone through the rigors of that testing with Cispro and approved to be selling and are supported by Cispro corporate and partners, premium partners like HIT Technology. So why accounts payable? I think really if you have a think about your accounts payable, and if I'm doing a session in person and I can see all your lovely faces, I'll ask everyone to put their hand up who has accounts payable, and lo and behold, I get everyone who puts their hand up, or all partners yelling. It's an assumption. It's something that we've all got in our businesses, and really you can all understand that whole thing. If we get an invoice emailed to us and we go and print it, we've got to put it in our filing cabinet. I'm sure you've all got multiple filing cabinets in your organization. Then you go through the process of archiving. You're always entering invoices and there's no receipt. I mean, how many times have you gone into AP invoice posting, you've put the invoice number in, the amount, the tax, you get down to that GRN section and the receipt's not there, or maybe it's not quite the right receipt. Maybe you don't know actually where to post it and you've got to actually cancel out of that AP invoice and actually go and find all the details. What does that mean? Walking around an organization, sending emails around, lo and behold, the supplier rings and asks where their payment is and you actually have no idea where the invoice is. These are some of the challenges that I think we all face on a weekly basis. So then we start to have a look at automation. How many keystrokes are you actually doing? Now, these are American numbers and we all, I was going to try and convert this to GBP, but I'm not necessarily that good at doing that. But the reality is you will all be able to define a value on putting an invoice in. There's somewhere upwards of 60 keyboard clicks in order to get a basic invoice in. By the time you've entered the invoice number, the invoice date, the due date, the invoice amount, the tax code, the tax amount, clicked on the sort of GRN section, pulled the GRN in based on a purchase order, clicked match, clicked on your GL distribution and added your distribution in. If you've got manual processes behind on your workflow for approval, you've got to add all the time in for that. You've then got that notion of fraud, and that's all very big and scary, and there's numbers there in red, and it's kind of a bit of that. I really feel like I should have a picture of a bird with its head in the sand, because that's a little how I feel. that notion of it'll never happen to us, and sadly that's becoming more and more not true. You can see a comment I've put on there that the City of London Police have stated that there was £152 million reported lost, and it's mainly through that payment diversion fraud or business email compromise. So it's where often you're getting an invoice from the same supplier regularly. Fraudsters, if you like, phish that email, find the logo and the state of that email, and then they start to send you invoices from what appears to be the same supplier, but it's got a new bank account, and you start paying that new bank account, and eventually your supplier will ring you and ask you why you haven't paid them. These are all things that we're sort of starting to look at. So I think when you get to that, you get that level of just employee frustration. And as business workers, we all appreciate that, that trying to keep our employees happy, engaged, doing the job that we need them to do is actually super important. We don't want people leaving. We don't want to have to train new people. And we want to be able to allow people to be excited in their job and to feel as if they've got something to look forward to. At the moment, they can be looking at lengthy processes, trying to understand where things are, get invoices approved, frustrated suppliers, following up with people, where is this invoice gone? People go on leave, they don't know where the invoice is. And then you've got the inevitable audit requirements and the auditors coming along saying, I need a copy of this invoice and all the supporting documents. So really at that point, that leads me into TRAILD, and I'll jump in now and show you an actual demonstration of the TRAILD product. Hopefully you can all see the TRAILD screen. So really this is the TRAILD landing page. The absolute intent of TRAILD is that as soon as an invoice arrives in your organization, it goes into TRAILD. Now, it can go in 3 different ways. You can drag and drop your invoices in. So if for whatever reason you've got them in a folder, you can simply just drag them across the screen and it goes in. You can click the green uploads button, which I'm going to do today because that's easier for me. Or alternatively, and this is really what most of our customers do, they email it straight in. So if you've got an email address like accounts@hittechnology.co.uk, we can set an auto forward on that. And so as soon as the email that arrives with the invoice in your organization, it comes straight into TRAILD. And from that point on, it becomes document management, and you can service and watch that workflow of that invoice. When the invoices are going in, you can see that there's 5 documents that are currently being processed. They go through 2 stages simultaneously. The first stage is OCR, so optical character recognition. That's when the system is actually reading the invoice and pulling off important pieces of information so you don't need to key them in. The second thing that it's doing is machine learning, and this is quite specific to TRAILD. It's remembering what you did with the invoice the last time you loaded a very similar invoice. So we're starting to get very accurate data sets once you combine those 2 together, and over a month or 2 when you've started to use the system more and more, you can remember how you can do it. It's a bit like cooking the same recipe every month. Eventually you don't need the recipe book. So you can see here I've got my 5 invoices that I've loaded. My invoice number is here on the left. My purchase order number has been read off the invoice. If the purchase order number has receipts available in Cispro, so they'd be appearing on your GRN trial balance, this black box appears and tells me that there's receipts available. So there's receipts in Cispro available to be matched to that purchase order. It's pulled off the ERP supplier. If your company is multi-company, it can allocate it to a company. It's pulled the invoice date. I'll explain the due date shortly. Pulled off the amount of the invoice, and in this case it's assigned them to me because I had uploaded them. You can notice that these invoices are all sitting here in draft. So let's jump into this first one here that does have a receipts available. Just realized when I do a demo with people, I ask them if they have any questions right about now so I can have a sip of water. So just talk quietly amongst yourself. Right. On the left-hand side here, you can see the PDF of the invoice. On this PDF, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can turn it upside down, we can turn it sideways. If it's landscape, it's no worries to flick it around. We can go through multiple pages if the invoice is across multiple pages. We also have the ability to upload additional files. So if you've got an additional document that you would normally consider to staple to that invoice, I can simply use the upload file button and add it into here. On the right hand side, we've got our entry screen. We'll start with our invoice number. So you can see there that the invoice number read off the invoice is 7680. You'll be able to see the red box over here, which is telling us where it found that document, that number from. Now, when we talk about machine learning, this is what the system is doing. It is giving you alternatives for what the invoice may be if that one up here was not correct. If I did select this as an alternative invoice number, the next time I loaded an invoice for Greenfield's IT Solutions, it would suggest that as the preferred invoice number. In this case, this is correct. I've got my company and I can choose my company. It's gone and found an ERP supplier, so a supplier from Cispro. It does that by looking at the name on the invoice, but also by looking at your VAT or tax number. So it actually reads that number. If this supplier didn't exist and it couldn't find a match, it would actually display here what the tax number was that it was trying to match to. I've got my branch. So if in Cispro you're actually changing the branch on your AP invoice, you can still change your branch here in TRAILD. My purchase order number has been read off the document, and again, machine learning gives me other suggestions if that is incorrect. I've got my invoice date that's been read. Now, we talked about our due date. You'll know when you do AP invoice posting that the due date is automatically populated based on your terms. So what we do is we give you the terms here from Cispro. Now, if we leave it blank, so we don't populate anything in here, when we push this document through to Cispro using the Cispro business objects, the due date will be based on the payment terms. That being said, the due date is actually read from the document, and I can simply click on it and select the due date that's on the invoice. I've got my posting periods of current, previous month 1 and previous month 2, same as you would have in Cispro. Same as you have in Cispro though, if those periods are closed, it's not going to post. I've then got my description, which is actually your invoice reference. This is not, I can't spell today, but that's all right. This is not mandatory and it's optional for you to enter. This middle section here is the details directly from Cispro. So this is to allow you to confirm that this is definitely the supplier you're looking for. It's giving you information like the country, the bank account details, the base currency if they're a currency other than your local currency, as well as your payment terms. Here you're going to see the very beginning of our risk and fraud protection. Risk and fraud protection runs all the way through TRAILD, and you'll see it in various places. But this information here is for our clerks. And it's saying that the bank account details on this particular PDF don't match Cispro. If I scroll down here, you'll actually be able to see that this account number here ends in 9779 and the bank account number in Cispro is 9778. Now, it's probably just that somebody mistyped the account number when they keyed that in, or it could be that someone's actually had some email distribution for you and actually stolen that bank account detail off your email. So again, this is for the clerk, but this risk will be elevated when we go through our approval process. Finally, on the right-hand side, we've got our pricing details. You can see that that price has been read off the document and you don't need to key that in. So for the header of this whole invoice, the only thing that I've touched is confirm the due date, and I've typed a description. And if you think about all the other fields that are in here and the number of clicks you would do in order to key that into Cispro, it's fairly significant. Once I've done my header, I move on to my lines. You'll remember in the original screen that this particular invoice had receipts available. I can simply click my add receipted items. It pulls through the GRN that was relevant to that purchase order, display the details. It also displays the general ledger code that the purchase order was originally costed to, and that can be quite helpful, particularly if you've got a PPV. In this case, I do have a PPV of 115 Rand. I can actually add a manual line at this point, and it will try and default it to the general ledger code of the purchase order. Don't stress, it won't do that if that general ledger code is a control account. I am an accountant. So, and then we can set it to go to PPV. These general ledger codes are simply straight from Cispro, so you can type in there whatever you wish for whatever general ledger code you want. If I've entered all my details and it balances, I can submit this invoice for approval. For the sake of this demo today, all of my approvers are going to come back to myself, but I will show you briefly the approval process in a second. Very exciting. My system has just gone into haywire. There we go. If I jump into the second invoice for the same supplier, you start to get into the habit of saying, okay, invoice number, yes, company, yes, supplier, yes, purchase order, yes, invoice date, yes, 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 not worrying about a description. Got my invoice total. Header's done without touching anything. You'll notice my add all receipted items is not available. Interesting. If I open my PO receipt selector, now this is like load all GRNs if we were talking about Cispro. Gives me a list of all the receipts that I've got in the system, and I can see quite quickly that the receipt for this purchase order hasn't been done. If I was in Cispro at this point, I'd have to cancel and I'd have to run around to my warehouse team and ask them what's going on. I, however, can just tag Clark, who is my warehouse manager. Where is the receipt for this purchase order? Once I send that message, Clark gets an email immediately giving him all the relevant details that he needs to be able to action that. Now he could log into TRAILD and send me a message back, but in fact, if he simply just did the receipt in Cispro, when I go back to that main screen, the black box will appear to show me that the receipt has been done. I have the ability though here to actually just save this invoice as draft. It'll save where I'm up to, all my comments, and it's not going to lose anything. Let me just jump into one more purchase order style invoice. Again, invoice on the left, run my eye through the information, check it's all okay. Yes, yes, yes. Check my totals. Yes. Got my receipt. Pull that in. Excellent. This one doesn't have a variance. Happy to go. I'm going to submit that invoice. All seems too easy, doesn't it? Let's have a look at an invoice then that doesn't have a purchase order. So I'm going to jump into cool ideas. Same thing, invoices on the left. It happens for them all. Invoice number, company, supplier, branch. No purchase order, the system couldn't find one. Invoice date, due date, post period. I'm going to add a description, bike. This particular invoice doesn't have tax, so I'm going to update this to be tax exempt. Now this invoice is tabular, so it means I've got sort of a description, quantity, unit price type scenario. And with this, I can choose the add from invoice button. When I do this, and you'll see the red box on the invoice explaining what it's doing, it's actually reading each line on the invoice and adding a new line. Now this is adding new lines in your general ledger distribution. It adds the quantity through and the unit cost for each line. This enables me to add a general ledger code and allocate each line to a different GL code. But let's say we needed to split this bottom line into two different departments. I can use this split button here, split it two ways, and you'll see it's divided that quantity of 6 down by 2, and I can now enter a general ledger code. But maybe this whole invoice is actually, let's say, subscriptions, and you want to split the invoice at the header level across two. I can choose my split. Maybe I'm going to split it 4 ways. It's now going to suggest 25% for each area. You've got the ability to say, actually, this one needs 35%. It reminds me I can't add up. I can update that one. And now my invoice is correct, and I can apply the relevant general ledger code that I need to for each line. Of course, all that being said, we do have the option to simply add a manual line where you just type in whatever value you like in the same way you would in Cispro. And then you can populate it to wherever you would like. I think cash book clearing looks like a perfect place to allocate this. Now, if I wasn't certain where that general ledger code should be applied to, I could actually tag Louise, if I could spell, Louise, where should this be coded? And I could send that. I could also assign the invoice to Louise if you like to think about it, whose in tray is this sitting in? And then Louise would get an email and action notice about that. She could then send me a message back explaining to me where the account needs to be allocated to. I'm happy with this at the moment, so I'm going to hit submit. So let's actually quickly just have a look at these approval rules that I mentioned to you. If I jump into my rules, now these are rules that you can set up yourself. And when we set a rule up, you start by setting up a name. I can set these rules up per company if I need to. And then I begin by adding conditions. My conditions include the amount, the branch, the supplier, the general ledger code, the PO owner or buyer, and who uploaded it by. TRAILD does have the option to allocate your invoices to jobs, and if you did have that option turned on, you would also be able to add a condition for jobs. So let's say, for example, I want all invoices that are greater than £10,000 and where the general ledger code is like 20. So this is basically saying any invoice which is allocated to a general ledger code beginning with 20 and above £10,000. I'm going to add my users. First off, this invoice can be approved by either Aaron or Clark. And once it's been approved by one of those people, it then needs to be approved by Shraddha. So using these conditions and these levels and approval paths, we can get pretty close to actually capturing all of the requirements. That way on an invoice, when you hit submit, TRAILD will review all your approval rules and decide where it should go. So what does the approval look like? So TRAILD is a web-based program that you can see here, and it is system agnostic. So you can be sitting on your couch at home approving your invoices while watching the TV, or on your iPad, your laptop, your PC, your big TV screen if you so wish. But when we're in our approval screen, what we're really trying to show to the managers and people who are approving invoices, which one is important to look at. And so we have these risk scores of medium, high, and low. So let's jump into the first one. The approver has full visibility of the PDF. If you'd attached additional documents to the invoice, those documents would be available here. I can see my invoice total. I also get the average of the supplier's invoices for the last 12 months, as well as a histogram. This invoice is medium risk, And it says this is a medium risk because there's no prior approved invoices. Now, we would be suggesting if this is a brand new supplier, you should maybe do a little more due diligence as to have the payment terms been set up correctly. Who approved this supplier? Do they have the correct bank account? Is it your brother's sister's best friend, or is it a legitimate supplier? Do they have the correct tax codes? I've got full visibility here of what the invoice has been allocated to. If I hover over the black box, I can see the purchase order number, receipt number, and details. I've also got visibility of the general ledger code. I'm happy with this invoice, so I'm going to approve it. Immediately takes me to my next invoice, and this one is a high risk. Again, I can see my invoice total and I can see the supplier's average, so it's within average. But it's giving me now as a manager this warning that the payment details are different. I've also got a note here that it's requesting urgent payment. You'll remember we changed the due date to be within 5 days. And this customer has a 30-day payment term. It's also telling me there's additional lines other than the purchase order. So in essence, there is a PPV on this invoice. Now, I can actually see here all my activities. I can always see who uploaded it, who submitted it, where an invoice had been routed around into an organization. And if there were any comments or anyone who'd been tagged, I'd be able to see all that. So if you like, all the scribble that you write on the invoice is now visible in here. I'm not happy approving this invoice. So I'm actually going to tag Adam. Please phone the supplier and check bank details. Now, I could have chosen to reject this invoice. If I do that, it goes back to the clerks and they need to reassess it. When you reject an invoice, you select a reason. These reasons are customizable and our implementation specialist will go through those when we set you up. But I'm actually going to delegate this invoice to Adam. And he can not only phone the supplier, but he can also work out whether we're going to approve that invoice or not. Finally, it takes me to my last one. This one is a low risk, well within my supplier's average. Can see the description, where it's been allocated to. You can see the information that I sent to Louise about where this should be coded to. I'm happy with this. I'm going to click approve. I can now see that there is nothing left in my waiting on me box and I've finished for the day. So if I go back to what the clerk is seeing, we've now got visibility that these two invoices here are approved and this invoice is pending review. Now, excuse me, Mr. Lesky, but it's the 27th of the month and I want to roll tomorrow. Could you please get a wiggle on? So we can actually mark this invoice as urgent and Adam will get another message straight away to say that it has been upscaled to urgent. Now, if, for example, Cool Ideas or Greenfield Solutions had phoned to say, we're waiting on a payment, what's happening? I can simply click on their supplier detail and I can see all of their invoices in here and what status they're at and who they're sitting with. Once I've got approved invoices, I can go to approved, select the button and export those to Cispro. Now, as I mentioned, we use the Cispro business objects. The license for those comes with the license for TRAILD and it goes through to Cispro. The sync happens every 5 minutes. When I go into Cispro, I can go into my supply query. Incidentally, we do sync with both Cispro 7 and Cispro 8, so you can use it with both versions. You can see the invoice reference down the bottom. If you go up to query an invoice up here, you'll be surprised how many people I showed this to and they go, we didn't know that existed. You can actually get a lot more information and see the distribution of the invoice here. We do pull through the line description for each of the lines, and that's really helpful if you're doing a GL query to try and understand where it's gone. But probably the most important thing is if I click play here, the original PDF that I had actually uploaded into TRAILD is now within Cispro, and anyone who has access to supplier query is now able to view this invoice. As well as that, if you'd uploaded additional documents to the invoice in TRAILD, those documents will be available in Cispro as well. For customers who want, we can actually add custom form fields and bring through the TRAILD URL and risk score in here. Jumping back into here. A couple of other things to quickly show you through here. If you ever have the scenario where you have an invoice PDF that has multiple invoices on it, and we all love suppliers who do that, but they do it quite regularly. So you'll see this Avis invoice. This page here is for one invoice. The next page is for a different invoice, and the next page is a different invoice again. You can choose this split invoice button. It goes through, it analyzes the PDF. It works out where the beginning of the pages are and suggests where to split it. If it had it wrong, you can update it and turn it on and off. Click the split button. It goes through, it splits that PDF into 3 PDFs. It deletes the original 3-page PDF in TRAILD and uploads these 3 individual invoices back into TRAILD to go back through the OCR and machine learning process. If we look at reports, I mentioned about how auditors can be complicated. This is a report that I've got quite a lot of my customers using. This is actually simply a list of invoices for a date range, and you can choose whatever date range you have. I can download this into Excel, and everyone loves a good Excel report. My Excel opens. So it looks fairly boring, but it's got quite a lot of information in. So if you take a look at this report, it's got your invoice number, the purchase order number, supplier, the company descriptions, who uploaded it, when it was submitted, the risk warning, the status of the invoice, who approved it, and when. It also has this invoice link. So if your auditor has access to your TRAILD system, they can simply click on this URL. It will open TRAILD. It will show your auditor the original PDF, all the additional files, where the invoice has been coded to, who uploaded and who approved the invoice. So you don't need to go rummaging through your filing cabinet looking for the invoices for the auditor. 2 other pieces of work that we're working through at the moment, which if some of you have seen TRAILD before, you may not have seen this. So we're looking at invoice reconciliation. So many of us get a document from our supplier and we really want to go through and make sure we've got all the invoices on their statement in our system. So if we open a supplier in the system, you'll be able to scroll down and you can see this grey box, and these ones are already in a reconciliation. I can actually open that reconciliation and see what it was. So this was my November 23 recon. That was the supplier value, and these are the invoices. So if I had my December or January statement in, I simply select the invoices, and you'll see it's got a running total at the top. Select new reconciliation, enter my reference, my statement value, and save. So for some customers, that's quite useful, particularly if you have multiple invoices on a statement and within a month for the same supplier. The other work we're doing is on payments. Now you'll know in Cispro, you create your payment cycle. And for many of our customers, you create your payment cycle. You've got your batches with system, manual, void checks, or EFT payments. It gives you your supplier list and all your invoices. Now, some customers will print that release payments report out of the payment cycle, and then they'll go and staple the 150 invoices to the back of that release payments report and dump it on the finance manager's desk and say, have a great weekend. What we're trying to do is create a digital version of that report, understanding that risk score for all of the invoices. So as you create your payment batch within Cispro, you get your batch number here. You also have, whether it's a system, void, or EFT check run here, the bank account you're running your payment for, the full value, and then the Cispro status of that payment batch. If I jump into that payment batch, it gives me the information of who the suppliers are that we've paid, the amount, and the histogram. It also gives me some of the risk warnings. I can expand that and it gives me all the different payments. Now we're running this and managing this irrespective of whether the invoice is within TRAILD or not. So you'll see for Mexican Express, these few invoices at the top are not TRAILD invoices. So there's no risk score, there's no approver, there's no TRAILD date. There's no TRAILD invoice value. This is your Cispro value and your payment value, and it's giving you some warnings on the different variances, which is why the risk is elevated. If I scroll down to the bottom payment supplier, this one is a TRAILD invoice. It was high risk when it went in, and it was approved by the TRAILD support user. Should never trust them. It's giving me the TRAILD invoice value, the Cispro value, and the payment value. If the finance manager or the CFO was interested to know, well, what is that invoice? You can simply click on the invoice number. It opens that invoice in a second tab, and you've got full visibility of all the information. Once you've finished looking at that, you can simply click back on the first tab and it takes you immediately back to where you were before, rather than somewhere else that you've got to work out where you are. So this is the work that TRAILD is doing in order to be the best AP platform and to be able to enhance and work with Cispro in what we can deliver. We're not trying to do receipting, we're not trying to do these kind of things that Cispro already has, but we're really about trying to embed the product and add further enhancements. Unless, Andrew, you think I've forgotten something, I think that's about all, and I'm happy to jump over to questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Tracy.
No worries.
I think there's a lot of value in what we've seen there, and I think what you've shown really does prove the the efficiency gains that you can get from the product, and also the risk protection elements that you've shown as well, which I think are excellent. So I'll open up the floor for questions. If you want to put any questions into the Q&A within Teams, hopefully you can all see the button for Q&A. And what I'll do is I'll go through them as they come through and put those questions to Tracy, and hopefully she has an inspiring answer for us.
Oh goodness, that was never part of the plan.
First question comes through in the chat there from Mike. What's the licensing model for TRAILD?
Sure, good question. So really for the licensing, we are unlimited users, unlimited approvers, and includes all your support. They're based on bands of invoice volumes. So it's 500 invoices a month, 1,000 invoices a month, etc. It goes up. It's probably worth noting TRAILD is a global company. So we have support people in EMEA. We have Louise, who's on the call with us, is our implementation specialist based in Cape Town. I have staff in Australia, and we also have staff in the US. So we do actually offer 24/6 support.
Excellent. Thank you. So next question from Cowper. Are the GRNs live within TRAILD?
They are synced every 5 minutes. So it's every 5 minutes on the 5 minutes. So yeah, if you do a GRN at 10:24, at 10:25, it will be in TRAILD. If you do a GRN at 10:26, it will be there at 10:30. That's also the same for suppliers and general ledger code. So they're all synced backwards and forwards.
Perfect, thank you. Another question from Mike here. What does the implementation plan look like from a timeline perspective?
Another good question. So really, a lot of the implementation is about how long the company wants to do their testing for. If you think about it, and I asked this question to someone the other day, if you had a new staff member start, how long would you allow them to test in AP invoice posting before you told them they needed to start going live? And they answered about 10 minutes. I said, perfect, that's how long you'll take to go live with Cispro, with TRAILD. The screen is relatively simple, and we do have many customers who sign on a Friday, give us the details we want on a Monday, start testing on a Tuesday, go live the following Monday. We have other customers who have quite a lengthy UAT process and run that through over a longer period. Sometimes it depends on the level of approval rules, but it's certainly relatively quick. We don't have to build the integration, that's already all done. We have many customers using TRAILD and Cispro around the globe. So yeah,
excellent. I think Lucy from Trelawney is on this call. I won't put her on the spot and ask her to speak right now, but Trelawney went live on TRAILD last month, and I think the implementation was only a couple of weeks, wasn't it, Tracy?
Yeah, yep. So couple of weeks, including
I'm happy
Christmas.
To speak, don't worry.
Oh, Lucy, go for it, Lucy.
Yeah, no, so it was a really speedy implementation for us. It took, we started looking at TRAILD kind of end of December actually, and it went live first week of Jan, and it was really quick. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
It's okay.
And I've just spotted Ian from Cook Optics has just said in the chat as well that they're on TRAILD and they're up and running live within 2 weeks as well. So that gives you a good feel for just how quick that this can be implemented.
Yeah. Yep. Excellent.
Okay, so we've got some more questions come in. So is it cloud hosted, and does it support single sign-on?
It does support single sign-on, and it is cloud hosted. It's Google Cloud, so we have hosting in the UK.
Awesome. Okay, and the next one, what currencies can the product handle?
However many and whatever currencies you wish, they are synced directly from Cispro. So you can do this particular one, I think, is actually sitting in Rand. I have Australian dollars, I have GBP, I have euros. I did one for the other day, Canadian dollars, US dollars, etc.
Excellent. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about the weird numbers you're seeing on the screen that are in South African Rand.
No. And maybe just on that, if this is the test bicycle companies, if I can remember my bicycle company codes. If you, there we go. If you have a supplier that is in a different currency, you do actually have the conversion rate available to you. We don't pre-populate that because your conversion rate, if you think about it in your AP invoice posting, is at the date that you're posting that invoice. We don't know when you're going to post this, so it will post as if you're doing it in Cispro. But if you do have one that you want to fix that currency, you can actually enter the currency conversion rate and it will push that through the business object.
Excellent. And Nihal has just actually asked, does it use the exchange rate that's in Cispro?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Okay, just having a quick look through. When you send an email with an invoice to authorize or a GRN to book in, do they receive a copy of the invoice as well?
No, they don't. So they receive, it's an email from TRAILD, and it basically has the invoice number, the supplier, the purchase order number, and whatever comment that you've entered down the bottom.
Thank you. That's, I think, all the questions we've got so far, although I can see Mike is typing another one. So there it goes. Mike's on it. So Mike's question is, do HIT technology support TRAILD? Absolutely, we do. Obviously, we rely on TRAILD in the background. but your point of contact for any issue, like it is with Cispro or any of the other partner products, your point of contact would be with our support team at Hit Technology.
Mm-hmm. And our idea is really about working as close as we can with the partners. As I say, we've got a number of Cispro experts on our team, but really it's your partner who knows your setup, your tax codes, your control accounts, your suppliers, and all that kind of information. So it's to our benefit to work with partners like Hit Technology.
Absolutely. Okay. Do we have any other questions from anybody?
I think I got off pretty light there.
I think you have. And you haven't been asked. You haven't been asked any really hard searching questions either. Maybe I should have had some for myself. Okay, I can't see anybody else typing anything. So I think we'll start to wrap up, which really leaves me to say thank you to everyone for attending. Oh, I'm going to pause there because another question has been asked. Do you provide training and support materials?
Yes, we do. So when you sign up, we start the implementation by sending you basically 2 documents, and one of it is more technical, as one of it is more Cispro centric. We're going to need a Cispro operator, that kind of stuff. But there is a one-off implementation fee, and that includes all the training that you will need in order to go live, and all the hand holding and whatnot. We do have training documents we can give. We also can record the training sessions. Most people only need 2, maybe 3 one-hour training sessions, and they're all done on Teams.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. And thank you, Sarah, for that question. That was a good one. Oh, we've got more coming in. There we go. Good job. We've still got time as well, which is great. So Nihal has asked, do you have an example of other food manufacturers that you have worked with?
Libstar?
Libstar is a food manufacturer, not in the UK, but yes.
No, not in the UK. Oh my goodness, there's hundreds, so I don't know that I can come up with one off the top of my head. Andrew, if you email me the person who's asked the question, I can take a look and send you the details back.
Yeah,
I tend to know the company names, but I don't know what they do. Is that bad?
No. I think it's quite important to point out. Obviously, this works across all sorts of industries. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if Cispro is working in that environment, then TRAILD will work with it. So whether you're measuring things in meters or kilograms or whatever, it really doesn't matter.
No, I think one of the things I've been fascinated with is I've got to see some Cispro sites all around the globe and been involved with, and hey, it's super interesting where the industries that Cispro is working in and some of the areas. So no, it's good.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I think the questions have stopped. So as I was saying, just want to say thank you to everybody for attending and participating in this. It's been really good. But special thanks to Tracy from TRAILD for an excellent presentation and demo. There's been a couple of comments in the chat about how good the demo was as well. So yeah, been really good to hear from you, Tracy. Finally, if anyone is interested in learning more about TRAILD, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details for both Hit Technology and TRAILD are on the screen there. We'd be very happy to talk to you further about it. So please do reach out. And final question just come in there saying, can we get the recording? Absolutely. It will be uploaded to YouTube as quickly as I can possibly do it. And then emails will go out to everybody that was registered or attended the event with a link to it. So you will receive that. So once again, many thanks for attending, and I wish you all a very pleasant rest of your day.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.